All right, thanks for tuning into this video. This will be the final video I record before the start of the NFL draft, before heading down to Santa Clara to see what transpires there. The NFL draft starts at 5 p.m. 49ers have the number 11 overall pick. Do not expect them to trade up. Do not expect them to trade back. More than likely, I would think that there won't be a great trade market at that point in the draft. So the 49ers will more than likely, I would think, be selecting after the first 10 players go off the board. So I know a lot of people ask me, are you going to Green Bay? No, I'm not going to Green Bay. All the decision makers, everything that's happening is happening in Santa Clara. The player the 49ers select might end up being one of those people in Green Bay. But regardless, we get that individual on a call shortly thereafter. The only draft I've been to in person was in 2019 in Nashville. And that was because I had done a lot of pre-work on Nick Bosa, did a huge story on him leading up to the draft. And so I was there in Nashville in anticipation of the 49ers selecting Nick Bosa. And so that's the only one that I've been to. Okay, before I get to this 7 round 49ers mock draft, a reminder, this is brought to you by Canyon Club Brewery. You know the location in Moraga. I'm sure you've been there. Maybe not, because it's a little bit off the beaten path, but it's a great space in Moraga. Great outdoor area for the family, tasty bites on the menu, and a wide selection of beer to, to select from. Well, now it's in the livery in Danville. It just opened just a couple months ago, and I've been there. It's a great location in the livery, great outdoor space. So when the weather turns nice and warm, it'll certainly be a spot that you'll want to check out. The livery in Danville, Canyon Club Brewery. In fact, a decent chance, maybe even a really good chance, that I'll be swinging by there after the draft concludes on Saturday. So who knows? I might see you there. Okay, so today's the exercise is the 7 round mock draft that I do every year. And I joked on social media that if it's anything like the recent history, I will go 11 for 11 with my projected 49ers 7 round mock draft. What I didn't say was that 11 for 11 means 0 for 11. 11 for 11 on getting the 49er selections wrong. Now, in the past, I have gotten several, gotten a couple here, 2 or 3 in this draft, 2 or 3 in that draft. But last year, I'm pretty sure I swung and missed entirely, 0 for 11. So we're going to see if we can do a little bit better this time. I can guarantee you one thing. I will not be worse than I was going 0 for 11 last year, or 11 for 11 if you're counting missed chances as one of the ones. Anyway, so here we went. In the mock draft I did for the 49ers, or for the entire NFL, the 1st round mock draft, I had the 49ers taking Shamar Stewart at number 11 overall. Um, you know what? For some reason, I come back to Shamar Stewart or Walter Nolen, maybe Michael Williams. Those are 3 guys right there. But also, as I talked about on my previous video, what if Mason Graham falls to 11? Is that a no-brainer? The 49ers throw that thing in and go get him? Maybe. Do they take an offensive lineman? Armand Mimbu probably won't be there. Will Campbell could be there. Kelvin Banks could be there. Heck, Daniel Jeremiah, I have a lot of respect for him. And he had the 49ers taking Gray Zabel, the North Dakota State offensive lineman, at 11. Boy, I don't see that, but you never know. So anyway, what I decided to do with this mock draft, the 7 round mock draft was, and it dropped this morning at NBC Sports Bay Area. I have the 49ers taking Walter Nolen at number 11. Defensive tackle, that is the 49ers' biggest need. And all things being equal, you draft best player available, you draft for need. You draft best player available. But what if the best player available and the need kind of coincide or they intersect? Well, Walter Nolen is interesting because people are all over the map on Walter Nolen. Jeff Legwold, who I've known for many years, he covers the Broncos for ESPN, has covered the NFL for many, many years. And I know he comes out with his, I think it's 100 players. He ranks his top 100 players in the draft, and he doesn't do it in a vacuum. He talks to personnel people, he talks to general managers, he talks to coaches, everything else. He had Walter Nolen as the number 5 player in this draft. So, what did that tell me? It told me that um, there are people in the NFL who think very highly of Nolen, a guy who can be a 3 down player, rush the passer on 3rd downs, and be good enough against the run. So, um, that's who I have the 49ers taking in this 7 round mock draft, Walter Nolen of Ole Miss. So what that means then is that you can kind of check that one off the board as far as defensive tackle. Now, what I looked for in the 2nd round, and how I tried to come up with these players was I took the consensus big board. So I wasn't using anybody's big board in particular, but I was using a consensus big board to kind of just figure out where these guys fit and if it's the range that seems to be logical where they would still be available for the 49ers. So in the 2nd round with the 43rd pick, I went with Landon Jackson from Arkansas. 6'6", 265 pounds. He's long and he's athletic. And he's somebody who could come off the board right there in that area. And one of the things, and this isn't a reason you take a guy at 43 overall in the 2nd round, but at 6'6", he's also been very good about blocking field goals and extra points. So kind of an added bonus, could line up in the interior as part of special teams. But this is right around the point where he would be coming off the board. And I think if the 49ers take a defensive tackle at number 1 in the 1st round, then their next pick, they would certainly look either to add to the pass rush or maybe even offensive line. I mean, there's a lot of different places they could go. So, Ariante Ursary is a guy, an offensive lineman who could be somebody there. Josh Connerly, if he lasts that long, offensive tackle from Oregon. Those are guys that kind of come to mind who could fit into that mold. So those are the first 2 picks I had the 49ers taking in my 7 round mock, a defensive tackle and then a defensive end. So in the 3rd round at 75, I have them going with Savion Williams, wide receiver from TCU. Now, not just any wide receiver. Think Deebo Samuel, a guy who's maybe not the most polished wide receiver, but a guy who is a demon, a maniac with the ball in his hands. And basically all the plays and the section of the playbook devoted to Deebo Samuel over the last 5 or 6 years that can just kind of be slid down the line and handed to Savion Williams. So 49ers probably will need some help at wide receiver coming out of this draft. Brandon Ayuk recovering from the ACL. Ricky Pearsall and Juwan Jennings are the 49ers' top healthy wide receivers. Jacob Cowing as well. And then Demarcus Robinson, they picked up the veteran in free agency, but a chance that he will be missing the first 3 games of the season as the NFL determines what kind of punishment, if any, there will be for a violation of the policy on substances of abuse. So Savion Williams, wide receiver in the 3rd round. With their next 3rd round pick, and that comes at 100, I have the 49ers addressing their nickel situation. Quincy Riley from Louisville. A lot of interceptions during his career at Louisville. Might be best suited initially anyway to play nickelback. But when you think about the 49ers last year, one of the many areas where they simply did not live up to the kind of output that they had the previous year was takeaways, specifically interceptions. 1 interception in the final 9 games for the 49ers last year. And this was a team that was the only team in the league in 2023 that had more interceptions than touchdown passes allowed. So Quincy Riley, I'm kind of slotting him in at number 11, a guy who's a playmaker, can also return punts if need be, but somebody where you have your nickel situation figured out there. Your 5 defensive backs with Lenore, Renardo Green, Quincy Riley, and the 2 safeties. So I have the 49ers investing a pick at 100 in Quincy Riley. Okay, so now they have four more picks over the next 60 selections. And at 113, I have them going with Logan Brown, an offensive tackle from Kansas, athletic, won't need to start year one, but somebody who fits what the 49ers do offensively, what they ask out of their offensive linemen. I had the 49ers at one point going with Chase Lund. He's the offensive tackle from UConn, a taller guy, not as strong, maybe more of a project than Logan Brown, but Logan Brown is a guy that can be a project if the 49ers need an offensive tackle, starting offensive tackle next year. He's a very good candidate for that. In the meantime, as a rookie, he could potentially be a swing tackle and kind of gain some experience and some grooming until he moves into a starting lineup in 2026. Okay, now in the fourth round at 138, this is an area where the 49ers could be looking at linebacker to replace Dre Greenlaw or to at least increase the competition. And the guy I have the 49ers taking there is Danny Stutsman from Oklahoma. This is a guy that has the physical skills, the production, everything else. It's how he adapts in pass coverage will be the thing that determines whether he just slides right in there next to Fred Warner. But Danny Stutsman, somebody who can learn a lot from Fred Warner in the 49ers linebacker meeting room, and he'd be competing against the D Winners and Tatum Bethune and Curtis Robinson for a full-time role in the 49ers defense. So Danny Stutsman at 138. At 147, I have the 49ers going with a center, Drew Kendall from Boston College. There was a part of me that thought Jonah Monheim would be somebody that could look at. I don't know that he's long enough, but what I like about Kendall is he's a better prospect than Monheim. He's longer, but he is athletic, and again, he does the kinds of things on the interior that the 49ers ask of their offensive linemen. So with the two offensive linemen I have the 49ers taking, Logan Brown and Drew Kendall, not required to be starters year one. Kendall would serve as the backup to Jake Brendel, but he could also, if he progresses as expected, now that NFL teams can keep 8 offensive linemen active on game days, 3 backups, 49ers would have a backup tackle, a backup guard, and a backup center, and that could very well be Drew Kendall in that role. Okay, now in the fifth round. That was at 147, Drew Kendall. At 160, tight end Jalin Conyers from Texas Tech. He came in, visited the 49ers, so he's on their radar. What I like about this selection at this spot is that the 49ers have George Kittle. They have their number 2 guy who's a blocking specialist, Luke Farrell. Conyers is somebody who has pass catching ability. He's more well rounded than any other reserve tight end that they've had in the past, and so he does have a chance down the road to be a starter. We'll see what happens with George Kittle's contract. I think 49ers and Kittle will get something done. Just to kind of reiterate what I've been talking about when it comes to Kittle, I know there's a report out there that he's staying away from the 49ers offseason program due to a contract situation. The 49ers they've expressed the desire to sign him to a long-term extension, keep him around forever. But there's a report, Diana Rossini from The Athletic said that Kittle was staying away from 49ers offseason program due to the contract issue. George Kittle went on social media and said, basically, your sources are wrong. All I can add to that situation, to that narrative, is what Kittle himself told me in the middle of December. I asked him about his availability to appear at the Dwight Clark Legacy event on May 21st. When he asked me, when is it? I said May 21st. And he goes, I don't know that I'll be in town. Usually I stay away from, or he doesn't come to the offseason program until later on. So with that kind of knowledge in the back of my mind on the 49ers Talk podcast with Jennifer Lee Chan, when we talked leading up to the offseason program, whether we expected Brock Purdy there, whether we expected George Kittle there, we both expected Brock Purdy to be in attendance, and he was in attendance. But what I said about Kittle was, I don't think he'll be there because he told me back in the middle of December he wasn't going to be there. So that's that's the knowledge I have on that situation. Okay, now no sixth round pick, right? So the 49ers go to the seventh round, and in the seventh round, I have them taking safety Craig Woodson from Cal at pick 227. 49ers already have, they added Jason Pinnock in free agency. They bring back Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown. Craig Woodson is somebody who, at this point in the seventh round of the draft, it's going to be difficult for these guys to make the team. Perhaps, maybe not. But Woodson is somebody that would be a very good backup, maybe a special teams player as well. That would be his spot to make the team. Okay, also in the seventh round. 249, Brashard Smith, running back from SMU. And so what I like about him is that he seems to fit the 49ers running style, which is basically stick your foot in the ground and get up the field, with that outside zone running scheme. I also like that he's very efficient catching the ball out of the backfield. Last year at SMU, he rushed for 1,300 yards and 14 touchdowns. He added 39 catches for 327 yards. So I think a good fit for the 49ers system. 49ers have had a lot of success later on in the draft, not in the third round, but later on in the draft, getting running backs or even in free agency, in undrafted free agents, picking up running backs. So Brashard Smith is a guy that I've kind of pinpointed for the 49ers on day three of the draft. And then the final selection, 252 overall. And that guy is Mello Dotson, Kansas. Mello Dotson from Kansas, kind of out of the same mold a little bit as Quincy Riley, who I have the 49ers taking earlier in the draft. But Mello Dotson would be somebody that, again, a potential nickelback covering the slot receiver. A lot of ball skills with him. 12 interceptions during his time with Kansas, including 4 pick sixes. So dynamic with the ball in his hands. Might not have the speed to run, stride for stride with these NFL wide receivers, which is the reason why he could be, might be, should be available in the seventh round. But I think he would be very good in a zone-based scheme. That's what the 49ers play. And again, don't need him to contribute year one, but kind of taking the chance, rolling the dice. And then as injuries happen, as they so often occur in the defensive backfield with all the attrition in the defensive backfield, Mello Dotson, somebody with a chance to step in and earn a spot on the roster, at the very least, maybe earn a spot on the practice squad and just continue to develop. So that is my 7 round 49ers mock draft. If you need a recap, just look below. I'll put all the players out there that I have them taking. But yeah, the first pick kind of sets the tone. The 49ers take a defensive tackle like I have them taking Walter Nolen here, then that wipes out defensive tackle for the next round. However, if they take any position other than defensive tackle, then you're looking at them taking some guys at other positions, and there are plenty of guys at other positions that I think could fit into what they're doing, including Tyleik Williams in the second round. Darius Alexander is a guy from Toledo that initially, when I was kind of figuring out where I wanted to go with this, that's a guy they could be taking in the second round. Another defensive tackle that I like for them a little bit later, Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee, a wide receiver, Kyle Williams from Washington State. Offensive tackle Anthony Belton, linebacker Chris Paul. I mean, those are some of the names of guys that I, at some point, probably penciled in for the 49ers taking in this 7 round mock draft, but I ended up going different ways and trying to make the pieces fit and all of that. So that is my 7 round mock draft. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see. We can keep score together over the next 3 days. In the comments section, tell me how many you think I'm going to get right. If I get 2 of those 11 correct, I'll be dancing in the streets and I'll be hoisting a cold one at Canyon Club on Saturday night in celebration. So, anyway, thanks so much for watching. Please leave a comment, a like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. And that is it for now.